When he got the contract with Atlantic Records, they paired him with the legendary producer Arif Mardin. And what I surmised is he ended up in Memphis because they had recently made Dusty in Memphis there at American with that band. And I think it just made sense for them to kind of work in that setting again.
Arif Mardin was big time. He was all over Atlantic's artists and Aretha, my God, you know. And so here's John Prine from Maywood and his guitar, and you've got Arif Mardin. Well, it's a huge jump. I mean, it happened so quick. He was a solo act. And he'd sit down and he'd play his guitar and sing his songs, and that was rock solid. And now all of a sudden, he was in his studio with a bunch of musicians and this full everything.
But the really fascinating thing about this session is that Arif Mardin had never made a folk record before. The Memphis Boys, the band, they had never played on a folk record before. And really, you know, Bobby Wood and some of the other Memphis Boys, they weren't particularly fans of folk music.
This is Bobby Wood. I played on the John Prine album in Memphis at American Studio. And, you know, we were used to doing really hard R&B and pop and some country, but not much, and mostly rock and roll. And when they came into the American Studio, it was like, what? He was just kind of way out of the bag for our type of music, you know. I just didn't know where to place him, and it definitely wasn't our bag. If you want to put us in a bag, of course we were in about 4 different bags, but that wasn't one of them. But you know, we still did our best to do a good job, always, as always. But nothing against him, you know. We just like, is this folk music or what is this? You know.
My name is Gene Chrisman. I played on the first John Prine album. Played drums on it. John's, it was kind of folky. Like Bobby told me, he said, man, you really don't know what to play on folky type stuff, you know, because we wasn't really into folk type music. And I guess the words were okay. I'm not knocking the words. I just couldn't understand the folk music. I think that was my main problem.
You know, I thought his songs was great. You know, I just didn't quite get the folk type thing that he fell into. You know, he definitely his audience is totally different than any of our audience. You know, so me being basically a melody person, I love melodies, and it was kind of light on that. But you know, most folk songs have got 3 chords. You know, that's. Not mean to sound anything bad. It's just like that's the way folk music goes, you know. And most of our stuff was like Wilson Pickett, and hard hitting R&B type stuff.
They thought it was too spare, and they didn't know what to do with it musically because folk music is so much about the lyrics. So this session, it could have been a disaster, right? It could have gone really poorly because it's a producer and a band that didn't really know where to put Prine. Like, he wasn't quite country, he wasn't quite folk. The music was so spare, right? Because, like, he wasn't a sophisticated player. He used a couple of chords and that's about it. So, yeah, I think it just sort of speaks to the Memphis Boys' professionalism, right? And they, you know, they have a mission, which is to make hits for labels. And if they don't deliver on that, then they failed. And so I think they felt like a deep sense of responsibility to do something effective with this record, even if it was sort of out of their wheelhouse.
I think a lot of stuff I did play the Wurlitzer piano, and of course, you know, it's just we as a production team would start listening as to where to get on this project, and I really didn't hear a lot of heavy piano, you know, for sure, and I kind of kept it into the lighter bag, you know, to match him. We always tried to match the artist's voice with what we played and not be too heavy or too light or whatever, you know. So I remember playing, you know, Wurlitzer on a lot of stuff that we did. And sometimes I saw some things I think I laid out on. I didn't even play because by that time, if I didn't hear something amazing on the keyboards, you know, I just laid out.
You know, a lot of the first part of Sam Stone, it was just mostly, I think, guitar. Well, I couldn't really hear what I played on it. If I played anything, it may have been brushes or something, you know, because I didn't hear it heavy. You got drummers who can play just about anything, and some of them just overplay on stuff that don't need to be there. Is the way I feel about it. You know, some stuff can just get overbearing. There's so many fills and all this stuff, and beating and banging on a ballad. You know, and that's not necessary to me.
We all work together as a production group. You know, Elvis, even when Elvis came in, he realized right quick that there was 5 or 6 people there that was, you know, it's like 2 heads are better than one. And it's kind of the way we all worked. You know, we'd get in the studio and try different things. Some stuff worked and some didn't. So it's kind of what we did. And back kind of in those days for me, it was learning what not to do, you know. And I think the rest of the guys were like that. We were kind of like the Motown guys in one sense. Of course, most of their stuff was R&B, but if there were any 2 of us on a record, I mean, it was going to lean towards Memphis, you know, because that's just what we did. The great thing about 5 or 6 great people in the studio, minds, you know, somebody's going to be the quarterback for that day, you know. So you just fall in and try to enhance what they're doing, and if you can't, you lay out, you know. If
I had to play like a slow song or something, I may lay out on a verse or something, or in the intro or something, and let somebody else. It's just like when we cut Always on My Mind on Willie. Well, Bobby Wood played the intro to that, and then we came in later. You know, it's just one of those kind of songs, and that's just the way we worked them out. Yeah, we listened to it and said, well, why don't we try this or try a different feel on it or do something to it, you know. We just never knew until we started working on it to figure out what to play, who was going to do what. And we just kind of played off of each other because we all stuck together. We was in that studio, the same bunch of players for about 5 years. Same guys cut on everything.
So the Memphis Boys were the house band at American Sound Studio in Memphis. American Sound Studio was one of the smallest and mightiest, like, independent recording studios in the region. If we think about bands like the Wrecking Crew in Los Angeles, the Memphis Boys were sort of the counterpart to the Wrecking Crew. They were the Memphis version of the Wrecking Crew. And they were known for really settling into this sort of just spectacular groove, right? All these guys played by feel, right? It was all done in intuition. They are on so many iconic recordings, so many hits. And yeah, they are just a monolith in the history of popular recorded music.
We had a lot of people to come in and cut, like Neil Diamond, Elvis, and Dusty Springfield, Arthur Conley in the box top, Petula Clark, and Dionne Warwick, you know, B.J. Thomas. I've heard that we in the 5 years we cut, we had 122 chart records.
And then Prine was brand new to recording. You know, he'd done a couple local appearances in Chicago, but he'd never been in a major studio. The setting was completely foreign, and I think that he was a little intimidated, right? He tells stories about how, like, you know, you can't tell musicians who played 10 times better than you that they're doing something wrong. I think he felt a little bit like a fish out of water, and I think that they worked really hard.
Well, I heard he was scared when he first came there. You know, wasn't really sure what we thought. I don't know if what we thought about him or anything, but we always got along with people, you know. As I remember, he just went along with what we felt, you know, and put it on tape, and it sounded pretty good, you know, just the way it was every day. You know, I knew that he was seems to be real timid, you know, but I didn't know that he was in awe of us, because we would just come to the studio every day to do our work and then go home. You know, we worked around the clock just about. I mean, we showed up at the studio at noon, went and eat, and then came back around 1:30 or 2 o'clock and started working, and would not go home until wee hours of the morning. You know, 2 or 3, 4 o'clock. So that was just what we did.
Prine's first wife, Ann Carroll, talks about how he would come back to their hotel room kind of really tired at the end of the day because they did things over and over and over, you know, trying to find the right feel and the right sound. It's really interesting. It's kind of 3 three factions that were completely inexperienced, right? Like in this setting, working together and making something that I think turned out pretty brilliantly.
But fortunately, I have the key to escape reality. And you may see me tonight with an illegal smile. It don't cost very much, but it lasts a long while. Won't you please tell the man I didn't kill anyone? No, I'm just trying to have me